Under pressure, the US turns up the heat on South Korea to change course over its decision to terminate a military intel sharing pact with Japan. The deal will lapse in less than 2 weeks unless Seoul has a change of heart. Pulling no punches, US President Donald Trump threatens an escalation of the trade war with China. He says tariffs on Beijing will be raised very substantially if no truce is reached in the coming weeks. Plus, resembling a war zone, protesters in Hong Kong battle police and South Korea's decision to terminate its key military intelligence sharing pact with Japan, saying it could send a wrong message to their adversaries in the region. Speaking to reporters at Camp Humphreys in Pyeongtaek on Tuesday, Robert Abrams said the GSOMIA pact had sent a clear message the two neighbors were prioritizing stability and security over historical differences. Unless Seoul makes a last-minute U-turn on its decision, the pact will expire on November 23rd. The chairman of the US Joint Chiefs of Staff has expressed hope of finding a way for South Korea and Japan to renew their military information sharing pact before it expires next week. According to Japan's Kyodo news agency, General Mark Milley made the remark on Tuesday following a meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Joint Chiefs of Staff General Park Han-gi on Thursday for annual talks between the Allies' JCS chairman. So, a busy week is lined up for the defense chiefs of South Korea and the US. A slew of high-level talks are scheduled in Seoul, with much attention on the fate of that intel sharing pact between South Korea and Japan. Oh Jung-hee has this report.
A series of security meetings are lined up this week between South Korea and the US, where Washington is expected to ramp up pressure on Seoul in terms of defense costs and GSOMIA. Top military officers from Seoul and Washington are to meet later this week at their military committee meeting on Thursday and security consultative meeting on Friday. The two sides are to discuss the recent security situation surrounding the Korean peninsula, and their Washington has reportedly demanded that Seoul pay nearly $5 billion for next year, which would be over 5 times what Seoul is paying now, and therefore unacceptable from Seoul's point of view. In addition, the U.S. is expected to press South Korea to keep its bilateral intel sharing pact with Japan, GSOMIA. Seoul decided to terminate the deal in August after Japan adopted export curbs against South Korea, citing a breach of trust and security issues. Unless South Korea rescinds its decision, the pact will automatically expire next Saturday.
U.S. Defense Secretary Mark Esper and Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Mark Milley are expected to stress very strongly the necessity of keeping GSOMIA for close security coordination among South Korea, the U.S., and Japan.
Discussions on GSOMIA will continue in meetings to follow. After the security consultative meeting, both defense chiefs are flying to Thailand for the ASEAN Defense Ministers meeting. There, the military chiefs of South Korea, the U.S., and Japan will sit down for trilateral talks, and a bilateral meeting between Seoul and Tokyo could also happen. South Korea's current stance is that it'll go ahead and terminate GSOMIA unless Tokyo withdraws its export restrictions. Eyes are on whether Seoul will change its mind next week if the bilateral Japan talks happen. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Now, after a long and tiring wait, especially considering the age of the victims, the first hearing in a lawsuit filed against the Japanese government by former South Korean comfort women will take place in Seoul this afternoon. It comes 3 whole years after it was put on ice due to Tokyo's refusal to participate. Kim Hyo-sun with the details.
The first hearing in a lawsuit seeking damages from Japan for wartime sex slavery is scheduled to be held in Seoul on Wednesday afternoon. The suit was filed in 2016, but the start of the trial was postponed until now. This was because the Japanese government refused to participate in the case, returning the petition to the South Korean District Court. As a result, the court had to take the procedure of conveyance by public announcement. This means uploading the related documents on its bulletin board for a set period of time, so it's considered that the documents have been delivered, even if they haven't been acknowledged by the other party. Over the course of the past 3 years, 5 former comfort women, including the outspoken activist Kim Bok-dong, have passed away.
일본 정부가 법적으로 사죄와 배상하기 전에는 위로금은 100억이 아니라 1000억을 줘도 우리는 받지 않겠습니다.
It's unclear whether the Japanese government will take part in the hearing. 2 elderly victims are expected. They also plan to ask the judicial branch to make a righteous decision, given that this lawsuit may be the last chance for the women to get justice. Kim Yo-san, Arirang News.
Now, a South Korea-based human rights group has called on Japan to compensate the victims of the country's wartime sexual slavery. The issue is at the centre of a long-standing dispute between Seoul and Tokyo. Kim Jae-hee reports.
The Korean branch of human rights organization Amnesty International said on Tuesday it has filed a legal submission to the Seoul Central District Court, urging Japan to compensate the victims of wartime sexual slavery.
Amnesty International Korea has been campaigning for the justice and reparation for the survivors of Japan's military sexual slavery system. We urged that the survivors should be allowed to seek for justice in their national court.
Amnesty International Korea added that Japan has no rightful reason to refuse the lawsuit.
Japanese government has been claiming that they are not bound to the national court of a foreign country. However, international legal order is very clear that the state immunity is not applicable in the case of gross violation of human rights and crimes against humanity. And this is the most compelling example.
The Japanese government has long been refusing to accept the lawsuit, which was filed by victims of Japan's sexual slavery and their family members back in 2016. Tokyo maintains its position that the issue was settled by a bilateral deal made by the two countries back in 2015 during the Park Geun-hye administration. Japan also claims that the so-called comfort women were not sexual slaves. Japan's Foreign Ministry's annual report, the 2019 Diplomatic Blue Book, claims the expression sex slaves is misleading and therefore should not be used. In response to the report, Seoul's Yonhap News Agency quoted on Tuesday a human rights Japanese lawyer, saying the Japanese government is spreading fake news. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
Now, US President Donald Trump claims the United States and China are on the brink of a significant Phase 1 trade deal. But more or less in the same breath, he renewed his threat of additional tariffs. Speaking at the Economic Club of New York on Tuesday, Trump warned Beijing that if they don't make a deal, the US is going to substantially raise tariffs on Chinese goods. He added only a deal that benefits American workers and companies will be accepted. President Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping were supposed to sign their agreement during the APEC summit in Chile this month, but as that summit has been cancelled, it remains unclear when and where they'll meet. Now, Hong Kong is being gripped by violence of an intensity not seen in roughly the 6 months of the pro-democracy protests there. There were even more clashes on Tuesday, this time on the campus of the Chinese University of Hong Kong, as students and police engaged in pitched battles. Hong Yu reports.
Hong Kong woke up to large fires across the city on Wednesday after yet another day of chaotic protests and clashes between protesters and the authorities. Tram tracks and a bridge were in flames and roads were blocked by thousands of protesters.
I think that we have to come out and take a stand. And if people don't come out, then there won't be any way to solve Hong Kong's problems.
This comes after police and students battled on the campus of the city's Chinese university. Anti-government protesters threw patrol bombs and lit fires outside the campus, and some blocked roads, while police prepared a water cannon to drive them back.
But the tears make the people here, and our voice will come together as one together here to stop them from entering our campus. I think it's violence to our campus that we are staying here. I do not know if they have the warrant to get into to the campus to do what they think is protecting the security and the society.
On the same day, Hong Kong police held a press conference saying they have the power to enforce the law on campus as the rioters' acts of throwing objects into the road from a height and setting fires pose a great threat to public security.
In view of the rioters' acts, the police actively conducted a number of actions, including entering the campus to disperse and arrest the rioters. Even without a search warrant, the police force ordinance has empowered us to enter, search, and make arrests in relevant places.
Tuesday was the second straight day of weekday protests that followed an especially violent day on Monday when one protester was shot by a police officer and a pro-government supporter was set on fire during an apparent dispute with anti-government protesters. 홍유, Arirang News.
Let's begin our world news in the United States. The Democrats will launch the public phase of their impeachment inquiry against President Trump this week with a slew of televised hearings. To our Kim Dami. So, Dami, tell us more about these tweets by President Trump.
Mark, with the public hearing starting on Wednesday local time, President Trump has been tweeting relentlessly to defend his stance and attack the Democrats. Let's start with his latest one on Tuesday. Trump said he will be releasing the transcript of the first and therefore more important phone call with the Ukrainian president in the coming days. It appears the move is aimed at highlighting there was no unfair external pressure on Ukraine to investigate his political rivals. President Trump also complained that Democrats are relying on second and third-hand witnesses, arguing that many of them are so-called never-Trumpers. He then reiterated that all they need to do is read the transcript with his Ukrainian counterparts. President Trump also attacked Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden and his son Hunter, urging an investigation against him. He said Joe Biden should testify about allegations he abused his power by pressuring a Ukrainian prosecutor to resign to stop any investigation of his son's lucrative role on the board of a Ukrainian gas firm. The impeachment inquiry officially enters the public-facing phase on Wednesday, with William Taylor, the top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, and Deputy Assistant Secretary of State George Kent testifying before the House. Former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine Marie Yovanovitch will be in the hot seat on Friday. Bolivia's ousted President Evo Morales landed in Mexico City on Tuesday after being granted asylum by Mexico. Stepping off the plane, he credited the Mexican government for saving his life. He also stressed he will continue to do politics as long as he's alive, adding the fight continues. Morales was first elected in 2006, resigned on Sunday after weeks of protest over alleged election fraud by defying constitutional limits to run for a fourth term in October's election. Tourist spots in Venice are struggling with heavy rain and floods. Venice's Tide Forecast Office said on Tuesday that the water level peaked at over 1.2 meters in the morning. Such a high water level is normal for Venice, a city surrounded by water, but above 1.2 meters reportedly causes malfunctions in the city. The city's Plaza San Marco, built in the 9th century, flooded with 70 centimeters of water on Tuesday.
South Korea added 419,000 new jobs on year in October, adding more than 300,000 new jobs for the third month in a row. Statistics Korea says there was an increase in the number of health and social welfare services jobs, but manufacturing, wholesale and retail jobs, they continue to go down. The employment rate in October for those between 15 and 64 years old hit 67.3%. That's the highest level since October 1989. The overall unemployment rate fell half a percentage point to 3%. A consortium led by a construction firm, HDC Hyundai Development Company, has been named as the preferred bidder to acquire South Korea's second biggest carrier, Asiana Airlines. Isung Jae with the details.
HTC Hyundai Development Company has long been a leader in South Korea's construction and distribution industry. However, they're looking to diversify their business with the acquisition of Asiana Airlines. Having outbid two other companies for Kumho's 31% stake in the carrier, HTC dollars for the airline. In addition, there will be a huge synergy effect for HTC if they're able to combine Asiana Airlines with their hotel, resort, and duty-free businesses. However, experts warn there may be a so-called winner's curse, with concerns about the airline's massive debt levels and unstable fund flows. The asset could be valued far less than how much HTC is paying for it.
The debt ratio is quite high for Asiana Airlines. HTC should pay attention to the company's financial soundness first, gain some corporate bond ratings, and expand externally.
Others are more optimistic, saying the acquisition will invigorate the stagnant domestic aviation industry by making Asiana Airlines more competitive with the nation's #1 carrier, Korean Air. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, one of the world's biggest annual forums for the biohealth industry, BioPlus, kicked off on Tuesday in Seoul. Around 2,000 people from here in South Korea and abroad are expected to attend the event, where researchers, they showcase everyone their latest products. Ji-young went there and filed this report.
At BioPlus, more than 60 bio companies from Korea and around the world have set up booths to promote their programs. One of those is a company from Germany working on treatments for cancer.
To just talk a little bit and introduce my work to the Korean audience. Yes, but of course also to look for any potential interesting new collaborations. It seems very impressive. The list of speakers and the overall breadth of topics is very interesting.
A Korean venture company, Imminent Bio, which also develops cancer treatments, explained its development, the so-called NK immune cell. The NK cell protects normal cells and selectively attacks and kills cells that are cancerous or aged. Another venture firm called K-BioSelf has developed a 3D printer that produces artificial skin to eliminate the need for animal testing. As the South Korean government considers the biofield a fast-emerging industry with fantastic potential, the officials are on a mission to tap deeper into the lucrative industry.
The bio industry is growing faster than any other. The global market size stands at roughly $1.3 trillion and is expected to grow at a rate of 5.4% over the next 5 years. This will be an opportunity for South Korea to utilize its IT infrastructure and medical data to strengthen its global competitiveness.
The researchers at the event stressed the need for more specialists, on easing of regulations, and financial assistance because their work costs a great deal of money.
The regulations of South Korea's Food and Drug Administration are very tight compared to those of other countries. It would be great for the government to ease its controls so that more bio companies can have opportunities to develop and register their products.
The government plans to nurture the bio industry by creating innovative networks, exempting it from some regulations, and supporting local companies in their global expansion. Ji-young, Arirang News.
Now, there's some majorly cramming taking place as we speak at millions of homes, cafes and libraries around South Korea. That's because the nation's standardized college entrance exam takes place on Thursday. It will have started in just under 24 hours from now, in fact. A day ahead of the exam, test takers have an orientation day at their designated test sites on this Wednesday. The Ministry of Education says test applicants will be banned from bringing in electronic devices. That includes smartphones, cameras, MP3 players, calculators and smartwatches. Those cannot be brought into the test sites. This year, some 550,000 test takers will take the college scholastic ability test. So South Korea's famous, or some would say infamous, college entrance exam, which lasts just a single day and covers multiple subjects, one after the other pretty much, is now just a day away, and their parents and relatives with good luck gifts. Our Kim Bo-kyung has this report.
The 수능 is a truly huge and potentially life-changing test for the more than half pre-exam jitters. Accordingly, local retailers have their 수능 items stocked and ready. The most popular gifts are Korean traditional taffies or rice cakes.
A lot of people are giving taffies and rice cakes because they are sticky to touch. They hope the test takers stick to the universities they want to attend.
The typography of the Chinese characters saying 합격 in Korean, meaning acceptance, are also emblazoned on the covers of the gifts. Other products are labeled acceptance to the door in reference to taking a successful test.
My colleague's son is taking the test this year. I bought this gift hoping he does well since he studied hard for a year and deserves to get into the school he wants to go to.
Big local retailers such as HomePlus are also having a 수능 sale.
This retailer is offering discounts on insulated containers and lunchboxes so the test takers can have a hot meal for lunch on the day of their tests.
Insulated products are on sale at 30% off, and chocolate aimed at giving test takers a short burst of energy are also available for sizable discounts. Those who don't have much time can give mobile gifts. The most widely used mobile messaging app in South Korea, KakaoTalk, has a special tab suggesting gifts for test takers.
For this year's college entrance exam, chocolate cafe vouchers, convenience store beverages, and fried chicken are proving popular. Cafe combos with food and drinks are also selling well.
Through heartfelt gifts, the students' loved ones are wishing their sons, daughters, nieces, and nephews the best of luck for Thursday's make-or-break test. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Good morning. So tomorrow is a big day for those taking the Suneung Korea's college entrance exam, but we cannot really say the weather is favorable. They will need an umbrella and warmer jacket for orientation day today, as rain will start from this afternoon in the west before gradually spreading to the rest of the country. And the rain could turn to snow in inland regions and mountainous regions in Gangwon province into late midnight tonight. And there could be some ice around on the busy Suneung morning commute. The incoming cold front and overnight wind chills will lead to very cold weather for mid-November at a low of -3 degrees Celsius here in the capital and highs that are lower than today's morning lows. And of course, mountainous regions will be far colder. And as for this afternoon, most regions will see highs in the low to mid-teens across the country with dark clouds moving in. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's where we're going to leave the news and weather for now on this Wednesday morning here in Seoul. Stay tuned to Arirang TV. Plenty more coming up, including our next newscast at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.